As you know, the Detroit Pistons won 2 games and lost ground as it relates to the 5th seed. The Detroit Red Wings won no games in regulation, but actually moved up the standings and sit in that first wild card spot. So I guess we definitely can, because they gained some points and they moved up. But you got to break down this kind of, I don't know, is it wacky, wild weekend from the Detroit Red Wings where, you know what, ultimately the results are positive.
Wacky wild weekend is the best way to put it, honestly, because this was the perfect example of, if you would have told me before the weekend had started that the Red Wings would finish with 3 points, you'd lose in overtime to Minnesota, and you'd win against Anaheim, I would have taken that. I would have been like, okay, that's a solid result. Minnesota's a good team. Anaheim's a very winnable game. You took care of business. But this is the example of how it happened is more the story than anything, because by no means was this a bad weekend for the Red Wings. They just left a lot on the table. Could end up being really big down the road, but we'll get to that in a second. I look at this, isn't that the old Clint Eastwood movie, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly? Somebody in the chat point that out. That is correct. But that was the week. That was basically what it was for the Detroit Red Wings. And you know what? I'm going to start with the good, because I'm in a good mood, and ultimately they did get 3 out of 4 possible points. The Red Wings continue to be, as they've been all season, power play demons. 5 of 9 on the weekend, drew 9 penalties, which is incredible, by the way, converted on 5 of them, 56%, and 80% on the penalty kill as well. That's really good. That's actually more than really good. That is effing phenomenal, and you'd expect to get 4 points with that kind of a result in 2 games, but more on that in just a second. And the Red Wings, as I said, have been demons on the power play all season long. They're second in the NHL. Lucas Raymond got himself a power play goal. Dylan Larkin got a power play goal. And Lucas Raymond, by the way, is second in the NHL in power play points. And Dylan Larkin is tied for first in the NHL in power play goals with Braden Point and Jake Gunsel. So that is all well and good. They scored on the power play, more on other people who showed up a little bit later, but I want to really highlight the power play and the PK. The bad, though, I would say goaltending. And I'm not going to kill Cam Talbot too much for his performance against the Wild. He was getting ambushed with shots. I don't think the defense did him a ton of favors, because the Wild outshot the Red Wings 39-30. Cam Talbot saved 35 of them. But the problem is, and I'll start with Cam Talbot, is that you're seeing a bit of a regression to the mean from Alex Lyon and Cam Talbot. They had that stretch of 6 games where both of them were hotter than fish grease, and now they're both kind of been bad lately. Last 3 games, Cam Talbot with an .863 save percentage, and Alex Lyon this weekend as well was not very good against Anaheim, and in his past 2 games, he has a save percentage of .806, which is morbid. So the goaltending hasn't been great. But what was really ugly about this weekend was the blowing of two-goal third-period leads. Think about these scenarios, and I want to paint this picture. I'm going to go Flannel Angelo on you right now.
That's right.
Just imagine this. One game against the Minnesota Wild, you're on a power play. There's 7:20 left in the third period. You're ahead by 2. Against the Anaheim Ducks, 2.5 minutes left in that game, you're up by 2. You win neither of those games in regulation. That can't happen. That is wholly unacceptable. And oh, by the way, one of those games you blow, and then you lose in overtime as well. Thank goodness for Patrick Kane, by the way, though, for saving our ass against Anaheim. And Patrick Kane and Chase, I know you'll back me up, and I know you guys as well. Doesn't it seem like damn near every time there's a big overtime or shootout goal, it's Patrick Kane that gets it done?
Yep.
And by the way, the numbers actually
into the lead for the record, right? Shootout goals.
Oh, he's been had that.
Yeah.
He's been had that. But the numbers actually play that out. Since December 7th of last year, he has either ended a game in overtime or with a shootout goal 9 times. That is by far the most on the Red Wings. So shout out to Patrick Kane. Shout out to Alex DeBrincat as well, getting a couple of goals. Already 1 goal away from his last season total at 26 and 57 games last year, 27 and 82. Shout out Marco Kasper as well. There was a lot of good, particularly with a lot of the offensive players that we like and are becoming stars like Raymond, Larkin, even DeBrincat and Casper, even though DeBrincat's a little bit different and Casper's a little younger. But that's why I say it was an up and down weekend. It was the good, the bad, and the ugly. Should have came up with 2 regulation wins. Instead, got a very solid and serviceable 3 points, but you left a lot on the table.
Yeah, I mean, definitely agree with you there, Sam. You cannot give up back-to-back 2-goal leads in the third period, especially against a poor Anaheim team that you've been pretty much dominating the whole game. Obviously, they're coming in firing, emptying the net, but still, you gotta play better defensively, and definitely seeing a little bit of a regression to the mean from the goaltending. I think a little bit of rust maybe from those 2 weeks off from those guys. Obviously, they're a little bit banged up, so hopefully, they got a little healthier. And, we see it coming into this week. We've got a tough stretch of games coming in the second half of the season. So definitely need them to step up and play closer to their level of play we saw in the first half of the season. Getting on the weekend with 3 points, you're happy about that when, a possible 4. But at the same time, like you said, it was an ugly 3 points to get. And it does suck when you're playing hard against a good team like Minnesota, who's up there, top of the standings in the West. And you end up losing that game in overtime. We were at Monster Jam, so I didn't really get to see that game as much. But we were up in the suites club level. We saw 2-goal lead in the third period, and we were all right, feeling pretty good about this. DeBrincat played really well. We were seeing his highlights, laying the body out there too. Getting physical.
Oh, I forgot who it was, who he just flattened. It was
right behind the net. And then Marco Casper yesterday too, just hit the reverse hit on the boards against Radko Gudas, who pretty much made a name for himself last year in the playoffs. Or the last 2 years for Florida, just laying the body down. So you're trying to take away the good from this weekend, but like you said, a lot of ugly, but 3 points, you got to keep fighting hard. And if they just keep playing, if they keep playing the way they did the first 2 periods, then this is going to be a tough team for anyone to beat throughout this second half of the season. You got to tighten up in the third period, though.
Oh yeah, those third periods were about as bad as they come. But if you're talking about getting up 3-1 against the Wild, the Wild are a damn good team. That's why it was so disappointing, because that would have been one of those signature type wins. And throughout most of the game, I thought Cam Talbot played really well. It's just, at the end, last half of the third period and in overtime, that just it didn't quite come to fruition. But what's also funny? You mentioned it at the beginning. If you just look at the standings, the Red Wings getting those 3 points, even though it wasn't exactly how you wanted to get them, they're in a really nice spot right now.
They separated themselves from the Blue Jackets too.
Yes, have the first wild card spot right now with 64 points, and there's nothing really you have to worry about in terms of teams having a game in hand over them. The only one is the Islanders, but they're pretty far back. So that's why this weekend was so crazy in so many ways, because 3 points is not bad by any means. But if you want to look even further deep into it, and Chase, I know you know the answer to this, why didn't the Red Wings make the playoffs last year?
Because the NHL has a horrible playoff seeding program.
What?
Fair. It's the overtime losses. You get awarded for just making it to overtime. Even if you lose, you get 2 points for winning and 1 point for losing. And even though the Red Wings, above 500, 41 wins last year, the Washington Capitals with only 40 wins ended up making the playoffs and got swept and killed by the Rangers, which was bullshit.
Yes.
We would have won at least 5.
Yes.
If I had a top 3, that would be number 1. Number 2 would be the priority patch. Number 3, Dylan Larkin's injury.
Priority
patch. The thing that I wanted to bring up, and Chase, you're 100% right, though, is that it was regulation wins. That was the tiebreaker that ultimately left the Red Wings out. And that's why, as much as that win and Patrick Kane having yet another clutch moment in his Storybook Hall of Fame career was awesome, you should have had 2 regulation wins this weekend, and you had none.
100%.
I don't know if I've ever seen a weekend like this in recent memory, in terms of so much good happened, but you left so much on the table.
Especially now, it is setting in, especially when you contrast it with last year and how that wound up. And all of us sitting here like, we won, but we lost. And it was largely because of how they distribute those points. And that's where you're happy that you got some points. You're happy that you put some separation there. But as it relates to, like we talked about with the Pistons, going up 3-1 over Atlanta Hawks, a team that if the Hawks make a surge, you're going to be grateful and glad that the Pistons have those tiebreaker kind of metrics in hand. And you really want the Red Wings to be able to pick up a couple more, especially if regulation wins can be a deciding factor.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that we're still kind of fighting for like wild card positioning and not, top 3 standings in our division, it is really important to win these games in regulation because we have the toughest remaining strength of schedule in this second half of the season. And some of the teams that we're competing against for these wild card positions, like Ottawa, like Montreal in the Atlantic Division, they're in the bottom half, like 27th, 28th, 30th ranked strength of schedule remaining. So they have a much easier road ahead. The Red Wings are going to have to play locked in. You have to full 60 minutes of hockey. But I mean, if we're able to ride out this stretch and stay competitive, sneak into the playoffs, with this stretch of games we have, this is going to be this team is going to be firing. They're going to be a really tough out, and that's if we get in, that's why I'm saying pencil us into the second round because this team is going to be playing hard, physical, playoff level hockey all throughout the second half of the season, leading into the playoffs. And they're going to have that momentum.
You look happier, Flannel.
Well, call me a slappy. Call me a slappy. Yeah, which I am right now. I think they could beat the Capitals in the first round. I really do.
Ooh.
I know that you got to give the Capitals a ton of credit for what they did in the offseason, particularly shoring up their defense and their goaltending, getting guys like Chikrin and Matt Roy, et cetera, et cetera. But in terms of high-end talent, other than, of course, Alex Ovechkin, who's one of the greatest ever, but older, I think the Red Wings can hang. I'm not saying that I would necessarily predict it, and Washington, if you haven't seen, has come out of the break firing like a mofo, but that's what gives me hope that there's a team that doesn't – the Washington Capitals, to me, they're not like what the Florida Panthers were last year, where you're just like, oh, crap, there's no chance. Washington, I'm throwing that out there that would give you a reason to root for the Red Wings even harder because it's not that auto first-round sweep that you might think it is.
That would be crazy if, the Pistons and the Red Wings sent 2 East Coast teams packing in the Capitals and the Knicks in the playoffs.
Inject that right there. These veins.
I see you, Kavasi. What up, though?
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with Sam. I think if we matched up with the Capitals, I'd be picking the Wings all day. And in the games we have seen them play against, I like the little bit of fearlessness you've seen out of Simon Edvinsson matching up against Ovechkin. Obviously, he's one of the best, and he's probably going to break Gretzky's scoring record this season. But I mean, Edvinsson, big, tough, physical player. He's going to go out there and he's going to do his best to skate right with him, and do what he can to lock him down and shut down defensively for his team. So I don't know, young player, but I'd love to see him get a little taste of some playoff action.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that would be imperative. I mean, it's still hard to believe that Dylan Larkin's never played in the playoffs. That's just depressing at this point. And I mean, it should be for all Red Wings fans. And obviously, I can't wait to see Lucas Raymond in the playoffs and Mo Seider in the playoffs as well. Simon Edvinsson, Casper, man.
You know what excites me, too, about Dylan Larkin is how we saw his play elevate on the national stage, on a big stage. And that to me is where I'm like, get this man into the playoffs. You almost feel like when Devin Booker was going off in the season before they made the playoffs, and they asked him bro, calm down, is this practice? He was like, no, I still ain't made the playoffs yet. And it's looking at our guy Dylan Larkin, knowing that this guy has, in my opinion, risen to the occasion of the C that he has on his chest. You want to see him have these types of successes because it's similar to the Cade thing. With Red Wings, you can be a good player, but we know this. You're measured by your playoff success. You're measured by longevity. And you hear even Steve Yzerman say, look, I'm building this team for longevity. I've been here. I know what the target is. And that's where I'm hoping that this season starts that quest for Dylan Larkin.
Yeah, man, he's been so good for so long. And you're right. He was, I think, exemplary in Four Nations once he got more usage, and he was one of the probably the hero of the first Canada game, and obviously was fantastic in the second matchup, even though he didn't score. We just saw he was getting first line. He was getting first. And by the way, somebody corrected me in the chat. He was in the playoffs technically in 2016, but he was a rookie, and that was not.
It wasn't his.
Right, get fine. You got me there. Oh, my bad. But you know what I mean. For all intents and purposes, he hasn't played in the playoffs. That was a different team. They were just trying to ride out their playoff streak, and they had no chance to win.
What up, brother?
Oh, I don't think I had anything. I mean, adding to that, like, yeah, not only do we have like some really good Americans and Dylan Larkin on this team, but the Wild, Matt Boldy, Brock Faber, their centerman and defenseman, you know, we saw them play not only like on the Four Nations stage, but also like they were here in LCA. They played really well too. So, you know, just another reason why I said like Wild are a good team, and it's nice to see the Red Wings competing hard against them. It would have been better to see them get the win, but you know, it's good like to see them play up against the tough competition. It's nice to see.
Yeah, the goal for the Red Wings in the second half of the season, and we're going to be covering it as it unfolds, is to withstand the gauntlet of the East. I mean, I don't know about you, Chase, but I'm looking at the New York Rangers as somebody who are primed for a run. I mean, they got too much talent. They just acquired JT Miller. I mean, Panarin's still playing well. Adam Fox is still playing well. But you got to think at some point that a guy like Zibanejad ramps it up a little bit, or Chris Kreider, or a Trocheck, or Lafreniere even. A lot of people on that team have underperformed, but they're just very, very talented. And the Red Wings are going to have to withstand some of these challenges. I mean, they got some games against Columbus coming up too as well to maybe have a chance to get some distance from them, but Columbus also has a chance to pass the Red Wings. So it's going to be a tough stretch, and it's never going to get any easier. No matter how happy you are with wins, there's just going to be another big game coming up. And it's going to be fun, but it's going to be a lot of nerve-wracking nights.
Hey, tap in, and you know what I mean? We asked the guys, during the break, we've kind of been kicking this thing around. I think it's very, very appropriate. We're going to have some watch parties. We're going to have to. Both of these teams are in the heart of playoff chases. Both of these teams have an opportunity to find themselves firmly in the top 6 spot. And it's going to be awesome to see both of these squads try to punch something home that LCA just hasn't seen in a long time. So I playoff hockey, playoff basketball in Detroit, that's going to be electric. And let's let the environment start now. Pack out LCA for Pistons, pack out LCA for Red Wings. I already love what we're seeing in the group chat right now in terms of, hey, let's get a suite and get to the game and act a fool.
Oh,
yes, sign me up.
Yes,
sure about that.
Sign me up. Willie B, what up, though?
Sure about
Big
that.
Willie style.
yes.
I'm definitely sure.
He said, I'm definitely sure.
No, absolutely. Suites are fun. I've got to experience them a couple times by virtue of my wife, but with the boys, with the boys, it's just a different vibe. Shout out to my wife and her current and former co-workers. It was a vibe there as well, but we all know the boys is just
it's something else, bro. You know what? We got everybody's favorite segment on the way, man. This has just been, for this person, a lot of wins today. Every single segment has been wins for Mr. JB.
I know, JB.
Bastard.
All I do is win. Fans go up, and they stay there. Side note, if that comes on at the club every single time, even at my old age, even though I'm not there very often anymore, it's still a vibe.
Yeah.
And they stay there.
Oh, the Gen Zers looking at you. What are they doing?
Like, what are they talking about? Just with the voice. And they stay there.
T-Pain, bro.
Right.
Like double flex.
You kids don't know about T-Pain.
Sorry, I'm having a moment.
They think he's a podcaster or a streamer.
Right. Back in my day, we had Teddy pin her ass down.